somewhere in rural Pennsylvania, a woman in her 80s hasn't taken a prescription pill in her entire life. Her medicine cabinet holds no bottles with child-proof caps, no insurance copay receipts, no side effect warning inserts folded into tiny squares. What it holds instead is a handwritten list passed down from her grandmother of 20 plants. Plants she grows herself, plants she dries, brews, presses, and poultices. Plants that have kept her community healthy for generations, while the rest of the country handed that responsibility over to a system that profits when you stay sick. Before we go any further, this content is for educational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Always consult a qualified healthcare professional before starting any new health regimen, especially if you're pregnant, nursing, or taking medications. Now, the Amish are statistically one of the healthiest long-lived communities in North America. Lower rates of many chronic diseases, a fraction of the mental health crises seen in surrounding populations, and a relationship with the land that most of us have lost entirely. They didn't arrive at that health by accident. They arrived at it through centuries of intentional, careful, practiced plant knowledge. Knowledge that their communities have quietly preserved while the rest of the world forgot. Today, we're recovering 20 of those plants. Some of them will be familiar. Some will surprise you. A few will make you wonder why nobody told you about them sooner. Number 11 in particular, a weed you've almost certainly yanked out of your yard, has been used for over 1,000 years as one of the most reliable respiratory herbs in the world. And number 17 has a history so dramatic that medieval monks actually kept it locked behind monastery walls. Let's start with the plant the cow Amish keep closest to the front door. Elderberry, Sambucus nigra. If you've spent any time in natural health circles, you've heard of this one. But what most people don't know is the depth of its role in Amish communities specifically. Elder trees were traditionally planted near the home as a form of living protection, not just spiritual protection, though that belief ran deep, but practical, daily medicine growing arm's reach from the kitchen. The dark purple berries are rich in anthocyanins, flavonoids that studies now suggest may help support the immune system's response to common respiratory illness. Research published in peer-reviewed journals has found that elderberry extracts may help reduce the duration and severity of cold symptoms. The Amish would simply say, when the sniffles start, reach for the elder syrup. Making it is straightforward. Simmer dried or fresh berries with water, a cinnamon stick, and raw honey, strain and store. A tablespoon a day through the fall and winter as general immune support. You can grow elder in almost any temperate climate. It asks for very little, and a single mature bush produces more berries than a family can use. Right next to elder in many Amish gardens, you'll find echinacea, purple coneflower, blazing in late summer like a small, determined fire. Native American healers used echinacea for centuries before European settlers ever arrived, treating everything from snakebite to sore throat. The Amish adopted it and never let go. Modern research has been exploring the plant's potential to support immune function, and while results are mixed depending on preparation and species, echinacea's reputation as a go-to for the early stages of illness is long and consistent. The key is timing. Traditionally, it's used at the first sign of illness, not as a daily tonic. Tincture, tea, or capsule, all three forms have long traditions of use. It grows beautifully in home gardens, blooms like it's showing off all summer, attracts pollinators, and then in fall you harvest the roots or the aerial parts and dry them for the cold months ahead. Beginner-friendly, beautiful, and useful. Hard to find a better combination. Now, walking barefoot through a field in rural Lancaster County, you'd crush plantain underfoot 100 times before breakfast. Not the banana, the common herb. Plantago major. This low-growing, broad-leafed plant grows in lawns, along roadsides, in the cracks of sidewalks. It is everywhere, and most people call it a weed and never think about it again. The Amish call it their field bandage, and that is not an exaggeration. The leaves, when bruised or chewed and applied to a bee sting, insect bite, or minor wound, contain compounds, aucubin and allantoin primarily, that studies suggest may help support skin healing and reduce localized irritation. As a tea, it's been traditionally used to soothe irritated mucous membranes, including in the throat and digestive tract. You don't need to grow this one. It is almost certainly already growing in your yard. The knowledge is the only thing that was missing. Yarrow is one of the oldest documented medicinal plants in human history. Archaeologists found it among the grave goods of a Neanderthal burial site in Iraq, which means human beings have known about this plant's properties for at minimum 60,000 years. The Amish use yarrow primarily for wound care and fever support. It's traditionally applied topically to help slow bleeding from minor cuts and taken as a hot tea at the onset of fever to encourage the body's natural temperature regulation. Scientists have identified active compounds in yarrow, including acyleic acid and flavonoids, that may help support these traditional uses. It's feathery, delicate-looking, and blooms in cheerful, flat-topped clusters of white or pale yellow. Grows like it owns the place once established, tolerates drought, and will come back year after year with almost no attention. One planting, decades of medicine. And then there is garlic, which needs no introduction, but deserves more credit than it typically gets. For thousands of years, every civilization that encountered garlic eventually made it medicine. The Egyptians fed it to pyramid builders for strength. Medieval doctors hung it to ward off plague. The Amish eat it, cook with it, ferment it in honey, and press it into salves. Allicin, the compound responsible for garlic's pungent bite, has been extensively studied for its potential antimicrobial properties. Research suggests it may help support cardiovascular health, immune function, and healthy blood pressure levels already within normal range. Raw garlic preserved in raw honey, honey-fermented garlic, is one of the simplest and most powerful preparations you can make at home. Fill a jar with peeled raw garlic cloves, cover completely with raw honey, seal loosely, and wait 4 weeks. What you get is something remarkable in flavor and in long traditional use. 1 clove a day, that's all. Stick with me here because we're about to move into the plants that most people have never thought twice about. And a few of them will genuinely change how you see the fields and woods around you. If you're finding this valuable, save this video. These aren't things you want to watch once and forget. Mullein, Verbascum thapsus. This is the tall, fuzzy, stately plant that grows along roadsides and in disturbed soil, sometimes reaching 6 feet high with a dramatic spike of yellow flowers. The Amish, the Cherokee, Appalachian folk healers, and European herbalists all converged on the same conclusion. This plant is extraordinary for the lungs. The leaves, dried and smoked or brewed into a strong tea, have been used for centuries as support for respiratory complaints, congestion, coughs, irritated airways. Studies on mullein have identified compounds that may act as expectorants, helping the body clear mucus from the respiratory tract. You can find mullein growing wild in most of North America, or grow it yourself from seed. It's a biennial, so it takes 2 years to flower, but once it does, you'll have seeds for years. The dried leaves make a gentle, slightly sweet tea with a long tradition behind every cup. Comfrey is the plant herbalists whisper about with a kind of reverence. Its Old English name was knitbone, and that tells you everything you need to know about how it was used. The Amish have long applied comfrey-infused oil or poultices to bruises, sprains, and the kind of bone-deep aches that come from physical labor. Allantoin and rosmarinic acid, both present in comfrey, have been researched for their potential to support cell regeneration and reduce localized inflammation. Important note here, comfrey is for external use. The internal use of comfrey is not recommended due to compounds that may affect the liver. This is a plant where the safety guidance matters. Use topically as a salve or compress on a sore shoulder or strained ankle. That's a centuries-old practice still backed by modern herbal medicine. You can grow it in a corner of any garden and it will produce massive, lush leaves season after season. Calendula, the pot marigold, has been growing in kitchen gardens since at least the 12th century, and it has never once let anyone down who took the time to know it. The Amish grow it in abundance and use the brilliant orange and yellow flowers in everything. Salves for dry and irritated skin, infused oils for chapped hands after winter work, tea for digestive support, and as a gentle ally for the lymphatic system. Studies on calendula have examined its content of triterpenoids and flavonoids, and research suggests it may help support wound healing and skin health. Growing it couldn't be more straightforward. Direct sow the seeds in spring. Watch them bloom prolifically all summer, Deadhead for continuous flowers. Harvest and dry the blooms. A jar of homemade calendula salve, just dried flowers infused in olive oil, thickened with a bit of beeswax, is one of the most practical things you can keep in your home. Black cohosh has a long and important history among the native peoples of eastern North America, who introduced it to European settlers, who eventually passed it along to Amish communities, where it found a permanent home. It has been traditionally used to support women's health, particularly in easing menstrual discomfort and supporting the transition through menopause. Research on black cohosh has been substantial. Some studies suggest its triterpene glycosides may help support hormonal balance and reduce hot flashes, though researchers continue to study exactly how this works. Standard caution here. Not recommended during pregnancy, and if you're taking any hormonal medications, a conversation with your doctor before using it is essential. It's a woodland plant, shade-tolerant, and grows beautifully under trees where little else will thrive. Red clover blossoms in fields all across the rural Midwest and Northeast, and the Amish have always known that those cheerful pink blooms are far more useful than they look. Traditionally used as a blood purifier and lymphatic support herb, red clover contains isoflavones, plant bisous, ast compounds studied for their potential relationship to hormonal health, particularly in women. It's also been explored for cardiovascular support. As a tea, it's mild and pleasant, slightly sweet, and easy to drink daily. You can dry the fresh blossoms from your own yard if you're not using pesticides, or source them from any reputable herb supplier. One of the most beautiful things about red clover is that it also fixes nitrogen in the soil, feeds pollinators, and asks for nothing. It gives in every direction. Here's where the list starts to feel a little like finding money in an old coat pocket. Because these next 5 plants, you've walked past them, you've pulled them out of your garden, you've called them weeds and thrown them in the compost. And every single one of them has a healing history that stretches back centuries. Dandelion. Yes, that dandelion. The yellow-flowered, puffball-seeding, lawn-destroying dandelion that you've spent good money trying to eliminate. Every part of this plant, root, leaf, flower, is medicinal. The Amish have long used dandelion root as a gentle liver and digestive support herb, and the leaves as a highly nutritious bitter green rich in vitamins A, C, K, and minerals, including iron and calcium. Research on dandelion has explored its potential diuretic properties, its antioxidant content, and its traditional use supporting liver function. As a coffee substitute, roasted dandelion root is earthy and satisfying. As a spring bitter tonic, the fresh young leaves in a salad are precisely what every traditional culture consumed after a long winter of heavy preserved food. Stop fighting it. Invite it. Chickweed is the small, sprawling, starry-flowered plant that emerges in cool weather and carpets garden beds and shaded spots with a lush green mat. It's one of the first plants to appear in spring and one of the most nutritious wild greens you can eat. High in vitamin C, iron, and calcium. Medicinally, the Amish and Appalachian herbalists have used it externally for irritated, itchy, inflamed skin conditions. A simple poultice of fresh chickweed applied to a rash, eczema flare, or insect bite has a long tradition of providing cooling relief. It's mild, it's safe, it's free, and it grows whether you want it to or not. That kind of generosity deserves acknowledgement. Lamb's quarters looks like a distant, wilder cousin of spinach, and in terms of nutrition, it absolutely puts spinach to shame. This is one of the most nutrient-dense wild greens in North America, extraordinarily high in calcium, iron, and vitamins A and C. And the Amish and many indigenous cultures have eaten it as a staple food for generations. As a food medicine, it supports what traditional healers called building the blood, providing the dense nutrition that the body needs to repair and sustain itself. Eat it raw in salads when young and tender. Sauté it as you would spinach, or dry and powder the leaves to add to soups through winter. It grows abundantly in disturbed soil, gardens, and fields everywhere in North America. Entirely free, entirely forgotten by most people. Goldenrod blooms in riot. It was gold all across the American countryside from August through October, and most people sneeze at the sight of it, blaming it for hay fever that is actually caused by ragweed blooming at the same time. This misplaced blame has given goldenrod an undeserved bad reputation because this plant is, in fact, a remarkable ally for the very system people accuse it of attacking. Traditional use of goldenrod spans Native American, Amish, and European folk medicine, where it was used to support urinary tract health, kidney function, and upper respiratory wellness. Studies have explored goldenrod's content of saponins, flavonoids, and phenolic acids, suggesting anti-inflammatory and antioxidant properties. As a tea, it's bright and slightly sweet. As a tincture, it's one of the go-to herbs for urinary health support. Clear its name. Use it well. Wood betony, Stachys botanica, was once so highly regarded in medieval Europe that there was a saying, "Sell your coat and buy betony." It was the catch-all herb of the Middle Ages, used for everything from digestive complaints to nervous tension to headaches. The Amish tradition, which drew heavily from German and Swiss folk medicine brought by early settlers, preserved the use of wood betony as a nervine, a plant that supports the nervous system and helps ease the kind of tension that lives in the gut and shoulders. Modern herbalists often reach for it in cases of what they call digestive anxiety. The nervous stomach, the tight solar plexus, the digestion that falls apart under stress. It's not a flashy plant. It doesn't bloom dramatically, but it's steady and dependable and has been trusted for a very long time. Before we go into the final 5, I want to pause on something. The Amish don't use plants because they can't access modern medicine. Many Amish communities do work with doctors for serious acute care. They use plants because they have an entirely different relationship with health, a daily, preventive, participatory relationship. They're not waiting to be sick and then reaching for the cure. They're building resilience all the time, continuously, through food and herbs and the simple act of knowing what grows around them. That's the real lesson here. Not that any one plant is magic, but that the practice of knowing and using these plants changes how you move through the world. These final 5 are the ones that seasoned herbalists get genuinely excited about, less commonly known, harder to find in mainstream stores, but absolutely worth knowing. Boneset. The name alone tells a story. Used during the terrible influenza epidemics of the 18th and 19th centuries, boneset, Eupatorium perfoliatum, was one of the most trusted herbs in North America for the deep, full-body aches that came with high fever. Breakbone fever was the colloquial term for that kind of influenza, and boneset was the answer. The Amish, inheriting this tradition from both European and Native American healers, kept it in their dispensary, as a go-to for severe cold and flu support. It's bitter, intensely so, and it's not a pleasant-tasting tea. But serious herbalists will tell you that the bitterness is part of the medicine. It stimulates immune response and supports what the body is already trying to do when it runs a fever. Grow it in a damp spot. It loves wet soil and rewards you with clouds of small white flowers that butterflies adore. Motherwort. The name is honest in a way most plant names aren't. This is an herb with a long, consistent history as a women's herb, specifically for the heart and the nervous system as they relate to cycles, transitions, and the unique stressors of women's lives. The Amish midwife tradition relied on motherwort, and European herbalists going back to Culpeper in the 1600s wrote extensively about its use. Studies on Leonoris cardiaca, its botanical name, have explored its compounds for potential effects on heart rate and anxiety, with some research suggesting it may help support a calm, steady heart rhythm. It's bitter, it's tall, and architectural in the garden. It seeds itself freely once established and comes back reliably year after year. Not recommended during pregnancy. This is one to know clearly. Lemon balm has the gentlest reputation of any herb on this list, and it has earned it completely. A member of the mint family, it spreads with the same enthusiasm, filling in spaces with heart-shaped, citrus-scented leaves that lift the spirit just by being brushed against. The Amish use it primarily as a calming herb, for children with colic, for adults with anxiety, for anyone struggling with restless nights. Research on lemon balm has been encouraging, with some studies suggesting it may help support relaxation, mood, and sleep quality, potentially through its interaction with GABA pathways in the brain. As a fresh tea, made simply by pouring just off the boil water over a handful of fresh leaves and steeping for 5 minutes, it produces one of the most pleasant cups you'll ever drink. Grow it anywhere. It will not fail you. Contain it like mint. It will take over a garden bed with great enthusiasm. Blue vervain grows tall and straight with tiny purple flowers climbing its stems, and it is one of the most underappreciated nervine herbs in the North American tradition. Native American healers used it extensively. The eclectic physicians of the 19th century, a remarkable school of American herbalists who bridged indigenous knowledge and European botanical medicine, considered it essential, and the Amish know it well. Blue vervain is traditionally used for what herbalists often call the type A pattern. The person who is wound too tight, can't stop working, holds tension in the neck and upper back, and falls asleep the moment they finally stop. It's specifically indicated for that kind of held stress. Studies on vervain are limited but growing, with some research exploring its iridoid glycosides for potential effects on the nervous system. Tincture is the most common preparation. A few drops in water in the evening, and the shoulders start to drop. And finally, stinging nettle, which deserves to be last because it might be the single most comprehensively useful plant on this entire list. The Amish relationship with nettle is long and deeply practical. The young spring leaves are one of the most nutritious foods available in the entire plant kingdom. Extraordinarily high in iron, calcium, magnesium, vitamins A, C, and K, and protein. Dried and infused as a tea, nettles have been traditionally used to support allergy relief, joint health, urinary health, and energy. Research on nettle has examined its anti-inflammatory compounds and its potential applications in supporting benign prostate health, joint discomfort, and seasonal allergy symptoms. You handle it with gloves until dried or cooked. The sting comes from formic acid on the tiny hollow needles, which is neutralized by either heat or drying. But once you know how to work with it, nettle becomes something you reach for constantly. Nourishing, building, quietly extraordinary. 20 plants, 1,000 years of accumulated wisdom, and not a single one of them requires a prescription, a pharmacy, or a copay. Here's the truth about all of this. You don't have to overhaul your entire life to reclaim this kind of wisdom. You don't have to move to Lancaster County or buy 40 acres or give up your apartment in the city. You can start with one plant, a pot of lemon balm on a sunny windowsill, a jar of honey-fermented garlic on your kitchen counter, a dandelion that you decide, this year, not to kill. The Amish haven't kept these plants because they're stubborn or old-fashioned. They've kept them because they work, because generation after generation, the evidence has accumulated not in journals, but in families, in grandmothers who lived to 90 without a pill, in children who recovered quickly, in communities that remained resilient through hard winters and hard times. That knowledge belongs to all of us. It always did. These plants grew in your ancestors' gardens, whatever your background, whatever your heritage. Almost every human culture on Earth has versions of these same plants and these same traditions. You're not learning something new today. You're remembering something old. If you want to go deeper on any of these, I'll be posting more detailed individual plant profiles in upcoming videos. And if you already grow any of these in your garden, drop it in the comments. I want to know which ones you found most useful, most surprising, or most personal. There's a community here of people who are quietly, seriously choosing to know their medicine again. You're part of it now. Take this seriously. Take your time. Start with one plant, one preparation, one small act of reclaiming. That's how every tradition starts. One person, one garden, one decision to pay attention. I'll see you in the next one.